Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another true crime video. So I just want to put a quick disclaimer in that I do talk about sexual assault in this video. So having said that, let's get into the case of Ebony Simpson. So Ebony Simpson was 9 years old and she lived in Bargo, which is just on the outskirts of Sydney, Australia. Bargo was a bit of a country town, so it had quite a small population. And she lived there with her two brothers, Zachary and Tasman, and her mother, Christine, and her father, Peter. So Bargo was considered quite a safe town with a population of only 3,000 people. So August 19th, 1992 was just a typical day for Ebony and her family. And just like any other day, she was catching the school bus home. She got off at her usual stop this day on the corner of Bargo and Arena Road, and she was the only one that got off on her stop on this day. Arena Road was 400 metres from Ebony's house. It was actually within eyesight, so very, very close. And on most days, Ebony's mum Christine would come meet her at the bus stop. However, on this particular day, she was busy, so she asked her son to go meet Ebony at the bus stop and walk her home. Christine stated, "I was running late trying to sort some insurance out, and I asked one of her brothers to go down and meet Ebony at the bus stop." As fate would have it, her brother's bus was running late, so when Ebony arrived at her bus stop, no one was there to greet her. So she decided to make the very short walk home alone. When her brother arrived at the bus stop a short time later, he couldn't see Ebony anywhere, so he just assumed that she'd walked home by herself, and he headed home himself. Unbeknownst to Ebony, on her short walk, someone was actually watching her. She walked past a yellow Mazda 808 sedan on her short walk. A man was standing looking over his car with the bonnet and boot open, giving the impression that his car had broken down, but unfortunately this wasn't the case at all. So a few of the neighbours had actually spotted this yellow Mazda in the neighbourhood in the weeks previous to this day, but I will get a bit more into that a bit later. As Ebony walked past the rear of the car, she was abducted. The man grabbed her, threw her in the boot, and drove away. Meanwhile, Christine arrived home to find Ebony was not there. She stated, "I came home and as soon as I got there, I could see her shoes weren't there and she wasn't home. My husband at the time rang the police while I went down to the bus stop. I ran around looking for her. I ran to the neighbours. I thought maybe she had got scared." Ebony's abductor drove her 7 kilometres away from her home along a dirt road towards a dam. When he got there, he parked his car, opened the boot, and dragged Ebony out. Ebony was of course hysterical at this point and crying and begging to be taken home to her mum. Her abductor then tied her hands behind her back with speaker wire that he had brought with him. He then proceeded to sexually assault Ebony repeatedly. As Ebony lay there crying, the man filled Ebony's pink school backpack with rocks from the dam. He then tied Ebony's legs together and weighted her down with her own backpack and then threw her in the dam in the deeper end, face first. Ebony struggled to keep her head above the water, but with the weight of her bag and her hands and her legs being tied, it was almost impossible. Her abductor stood there for a minute after throwing her into the dam before walking away. So the search for Ebony started immediately. Police asked Christine if she had noticed anything unusual in the area the days before Ebony's disappearance. When Christine couldn't think of anything, the policeman rephrased his question. "Tell me about the last few days," he asked. And that's when Christine remembered the yellow Mazda. The yellow Mazda had been parked near Ebony's bus stop. Christine stated, "I remember seeing a guy in a broken down car with its bonnet open the other way around, which is different from other cars. I remember looking at him and thinking, I'll pick Ebony up and then I'll come back around and see if I can help him." Christine and her family also assisted the police as much as they possibly could, giving a description of the car owner and also a description of what Ebony was wearing to school that day, as well as any family problems or anything that may affect her disappearance. So a police sketch artist put together a sketch of the man they had seen with the yellow Mazda. A neighbour who saw Ebony walking home also recalls the man and the yellow Mazda and saw him looking into under the hood of the car and have the bonnet up as Zoe's car had broken down. School teachers at Ebony School had also witnessed this same yellow car lurking around Ebony's school and even on several occasions following the school bus home. By the next morning, all of Bargo was aware of Ebony's disappearance. Police, emergency services and local residents were all out looking for Ebony. The police also set up a command post just outside the Simpsons' home to discuss the investigation so far. They had a briefing where they described what Ebony looked like and a description of the yellow Mazda. And that's when one police officer points to a car only 50 meters away and says, like that one, a yellow Mazda 808 sedan matching several witness descriptions is parked just meters away from the police command post. Police, not wanting to jump to conclusions, approached the vehicle. Police at this time were also shown a sketch of the man that Christine described as the vehicle owner. When police saw this, they actually recognized the man as someone that was out searching for Ebony that morning. The car owner noticed the police around his car and he approached them. The police asked Christine if this was the car she had seen. She said that the bonnet and the hood opened up the opposite way, which was also a feature of this car and a feature of a Mazda 808 sedan. The police started questioning the man. The man in question being 29-year-old Andrew Garforth. The police started questioning him about his car and his whereabouts in the last several days. Police also took photos of Garforth's car. So Andrew Garforth was at Ebony's search that day on the insistence of his partner to show his community spirit, as he was actually new to the area. Garforth, his partner and his two young boys had just moved into the area recently from Perth, Western Australia. Police described the man as really compliant. He was quiet and fairly calm, and when they asked him to open the boot, he did. Due to his demeanour, police weren't suspicious of Andrew Garforth at all, but they decided to confiscate his car just in case. So police tell Garforth they just want to confiscate his car just to take some photos of it to show the media, to show them what kind of car they are searching for, implying to Garforth that he is not a suspect, and he agrees to this. In fact, Andrew Garforth was a really helpful and willing participant in this whole situation. He was really keen to help and he agreed to come down to the police station for questioning. Initially, police considered going in with the hard questions on Garforth, asking him straight up where Ebony was, but after witnessing his demeanour, they had second guessed themselves, so they decided just to treat him as a witness. Garforth told police that at the time of his disappearance, he was on the way to the video store. Police asked Garforth the route he took to the video store, and they noted that he avoided saying Bargo Road and Arena Road, which was where Ebony went missing. This would have also been the most direct route to the video store, therefore it's a bit odd for him to have taken the direction he did. Police were unsure what to ask Garforth next, so they just asked him to repeat the route he took to get to the video store. However, on his second account, he trips up, saying that he went past Bargo and Arena Road. And now police are starting to get suspicious. After only 15 minutes of being interviewed by police, Andrew Garforth utters these words. When the young girl walked past the car, I grabbed her and put her in the boot.
The young girl walked past and I grabbed her and put her in the boot. Put her in the car and drove away.
No emotion, no remorse, and no breakdown. He said it so casually without police even having to drag out of him. Garforth then proceeds to tell police exactly what happened. He stated that Ebony had asked him if he was going to let her go, and he told her, I don't know. Police immediately headed to the dam Garforth had mentioned throwing Ebony into because they believed there was a chance that she may still be alive. So that night, August 20th at 11 p.m, police head down to the dam with Garforth in tow to see what has happened to Ebony. At this point, it had been 31 hours since Ebony's disappearance. When police arrived at the location, they looked into the dam to see a pink backpack floating in the water. They described the dam as still could be that night. As soon as this was located, the police knew Ebony had not survived. Police believe even if Ebony had survived being thrown into the dam, the temperatures alone that night after being in the cold dam would have probably killed her. Unfortunately, being thrown 10 meters into the dam face down, being tied up with her backpack, gave Ebony no chance of surviving. Garforth even stated, "She shouted help as I walked away. When I left her, she was trying to get back to the bank. I believed she could have possibly drowned or maybe made it to the bank." Andrew Garforth stood at the dam with police, explaining again exactly what happened, and again showing no remorse whatsoever. At 2 a.m. that morning, police delivered the devastating news to the Simpson family. And it wasn't actually until Garforth's next interview with police that he admitted to sexually assaulting Ebony, stating, "I took her up onto the bank of the dam, tied her hands to her feet, pulled her pants down around her ankles, sexually assaulted her, and threw her in the dam." Andrew Garforth was charged with murder as police gathered evidence. And also at this time, Ebony Simpson was laid to rest. As you can imagine, the whole community, and in fact, the whole of Australia, were angered and outraged by the brutal murder of this innocent young girl. Mobs of angry people actually turned up at Garforth's court appearance. It was described as a real lynch mob, with people shouting things like, "Die you pig," and "Hang him."
At the time, there were calls to bring back the death penalty. Angry locals in the town of Bargo, just outside of Sydney, wanted to lynch him themselves.
We'll tie his arms and legs and see how he goes. Come on, get him here now.
And you may remember me stating earlier where police spotted the yellow Mazda initially, and that was actually at Ebony's search party. So Christine Simpson also found out that Andrew Garforth had been part of Ebony's search party. Not only that, Garforth had been on her property. Christine Simpson had actually fed him food, all along knowing where Ebony was.
He came onto our property, he joined the search. We fed him. I mean, he's a horrible man.
And as I said, Garforth only joined the search on the insistence of his partner. In the time after Ebony's murder, her family struggled to deal with the trauma of the aftermath. As you can imagine, of course. They even described how people were not willing to take them on as clients for counselling because they were considered too hard. But finally, one man decided to help out, and that was John Merrick. He introduced Ebony's parents to Gary and Grace Lynch, and these may not be names you're familiar with, but these are the parents of murder victim Anita Cobby. And this is quite an old case. It is from 1986, I believe, here in Australia, and it is one I want to cover myself. It's one to look into if you haven't heard of it, Anita Cobby. It is beyond tragic, and a case that I have looked into extensively, and one that is close to my heart. I feel close to this case. But anyway, the John Merrick thought by talking to someone that they could relate to, the Lynches, that they may be able to start to overcome their grief. Together, Christine, Gary and Grace and another small group of individuals formed the Homicide Victims Support Group. And this is a group that is still around today. It's a group that you can support if you're interested. I'll leave information down below, but it's just an amazing initiative. It's something good that has come out of an awful situation. So weeks after the formation of the Homicide Victims Support Group, the trial for Andrew Garforth was underway. As well as Garforth's confession, of course, there was no shortage of DNA evidence. Garforth pleaded guilty straight up, making no attempt to claim innocence. The judge at Garforth's sentencing stated that the crimes Garforth committed fall squarely into the category of the worst type of case. His comments about what he expected the girl to do after he threw her tied up in the dam was chilling in the extreme. The indifference to the fate of the victim by the prisoner would appall any civilized human being. His intention was not to cause grievous bodily harm. His intention was to kill. 11 months after Ebony's abduction and murder, Garforth is given a life in jail on a folder marked never to be released. And just as a side note, Anita Cobby's case had the same result basically. All 5 of the despicable humans involved got life in prison, never to be released. So in this case, life in jail meant literally life in jail, which was not common in Australia at the time. Life meant 20 years. It was actually one of the first sentences of its kind handed down, and one of the harshest available in Australia, as we don't have the death penalty. And Garforth also has no chance of parole. However, Garforth was confident he'll be out within years, telling his partner, "I'll see you in 14 years." So Christine Simpson has fought long and hard to prevent this happening. And thank God he is still in jail today. Even to this day, Christine Simpson is fighting for the rights of victims of crime through the Homicide Victims Support Group. She's described it as taking all her anger and turning it into something positive. She also set up the first recovery centre in the world for homicide victims, and she named this Ebony House. Unfortunately, Garforth has been causing the Simpson family grief since he was put in jail. After being beat up in jail by another inmate and losing hearing in one of his ears, he had the audacity to apply for victims' compensation. This was actually initially successful before quickly being reviewed and overturned. And even in only July of last year, Andrew Garforth's prisoner status was downgraded from an A2 to a B, which basically gives him more rights and privileges while he's in jail. A decision that was quickly reversed by Corrective Service Minister David Elliott after Christine appeared on a current affairs show here in Australia, voicing her utter disgust on this situation. The public outcry was so loud after Christine's interview that the decision about his prisoner status was reversed the very next day after this interview. This strong show of support for Christine Simpson and her family really demonstrates that Australia still remembers and cares for Ebony Simpson. So that is today's case, guys. I hope you found it interesting hearing Ebony's story. I feel like even though this was a pretty big case in 1994, no one knows about this case today, which really shocks me. And it was huge at the time. Not that I remember 1994, but from my research, this was a major case in Australia, and it got Australians angry, and rightly so. So if you did enjoy this video, find it interesting, don't forget to thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of my true crime videos. As always, if you've got any requests, leave them in the comments below, or you can message me or comment on any of my social media in the down bar. Have an amazing day, guys. I will speak to you guys very soon.
Call it off, let it go, all for nothing. I should have known. I made